talking. Hey everybody, welcome to our webcast today. As you can see, we have the amazing Cece Bell with us, and we are so excited. Thank you guys for joining us, and Cece, of course, thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait to hear from you and have a discussion, get to hear all the ins and outs of your life and your books. The boring stuff has to come first, so let me just quickly go over our housekeeping. If you've been with us before, you are familiar with a lot of this, but just a reminder, this webcast is being recorded and it'll be available a couple of hours from now, just for on-demand viewing. At that time, it will be closed captioned. So the recording will be closed captioned. And if for some reason you have a group of folks who want to watch right now with captioning, pop over to our Facebook page and we have it streaming live from there. There is a Q&A field at the bottom of your screen, or it may already be popped up on your screen. Pop in your questions throughout this conversation and we'll see how many we can get to. And also, I'm going to go to the slide next for our resources, because we have a lot of cool downloadable things from Cece and from her publishing companies that we want to make sure you guys know about. And also, if you are hearing background noise, refresh your screen and it ought to quiet it or stop it. All right, let me just quickly tell you about our resources. Unfortunately, there is no way for people on Facebook to click these unless we add the links in there. And if you're interested, just make a comment on our Facebook and we'll pop them in there. But the top thing is really exciting. We have a giveaway thanks to the generosity of Cece and her folks. You can enter to win an autographed copy of Chicken Brain, Egg, or Eyeball, which we'll hear about a little bit later. You can also download those teacher's guides and a sticker sheet for Chicken Brain. And then the wonderful Deafo, the superpowered edition, we have a link there so you can learn more about that, and a teacher's guide. We were so honored to also carry that book in our collection years ago when it made its debut. So again, I don't want to spend too much time talking because I know we all want to hear from Cece, but I suspect you all are familiar with her if you're with us. But let me just give a quick introduction. And this is in Cece's own words, because she has it on her website that if you need to say something decent about her, you can use this. So I'm going to use it.
It might be outdated. It might be outdated.
Okay, well, correct me if anything's wrong still. So Cece lives in an old church in Virginia and works in a newish barn right next door. She met her husband, writer Tom Engelberger, which if you're not familiar with him, he's from the Origami Yoda books. And they met at the College of William and Mary, where they were both art majors. And Cece went on to get a graduate degree in illustration and design at Kent State University. She became a full-time author and illustrator after many years working as a freelance illustrator and designer for all kinds of nutty projects. And her books include the Newbery Honor and Eisner-winning graphic novel, which is a memoir, Deafo, the Geisel Honor-winning Rabbit and Robot, The Sleepover, and Rabbit and Robot and Ribbit, I Am a Donkey, Bewigged, Itty Bitty, and the Sock Monkey series. And she has also created books with her husband, including Cranky Doodle and the Inspector Flytrap series. So on to you, Cece. I will let you take over the slides so you can talk to everybody. She wants to share with you about her character development, and we can't wait to hear about everything she has to say.
All right. So you want me to go right into my presentation now? Sure. instead of our conversation?
Yeah, right? Well, why don't you, I mean, you could tell us a little bit about that bio I just read. Is that correct? Does that kind of sum up the Cece Bell world?
Well, so I'm a little nervous because I know that there are all these people out there that are listening to this, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, because often when I get nervous, I end up talking a little blue, you know. No, you can't go blue today. So,
but, we're all friends here.
But I thought maybe before I get into the presentation, we can just talk a little bit about some of the things that we talked about the other day about about Zoom and technology and the coronavirus and the pandemic and all that stuff.
Yeah, let me set that up. Let me set that up a little bit. Cece and I have rehearsed a couple of times because we needed to kind of figure out all this platform, especially because she needs to be able to read my lips. And we wanted everybody who was available to also be able to see both of our lips very clearly, as well as coming up with a solution for Facebook captioning. But during that conversation, we were talking about the unique highs and lows, or challenges and successes of her experience with coronavirus and masks and online meetings. So yeah, I would love for you to tell them some of those stories.
Yeah. Okay. So, this has been such a strange and difficult time for everybody. And there's so much suffering right now, but there's also these other ways that it's been challenging, and everybody has to wear masks, and I want everybody to wear their mask, but it really backfires on me when I go out into the world, and I'm absolutely 100% reliant on lip reading. I cannot get through without it. I can only hear vowel sounds, and so language does not make sense to me without lips. And so when I go anywhere, to the grocery store and to the post office or whatever, I'm stuck because I can't really understand what the person is saying to me. And I have a special app on my phone that helps sort of transcribe what the person is saying. And that's great, but it still causes a lot of problems because of the timing issues that go with it. And so a good example of that is I was at the grocery store, and I've got on my mask, the cashier has on her mask, and I'm just standing there thinking, just please don't say anything. Please don't say anything. We don't need to have a conversation. And but sure enough, eventually the cashier picks up my jug of milk and she's brandishing it, and she's saying something. I know she's saying something because you can see in her eyes that she's questioning me. And so I'm like, So I think, well, I'm going to have to go through my whole kit and caboodle. And that kit and caboodle is basically, I have to explain, I have trouble hearing, I'm a lip reader, but I have this special app. I'm going to turn the app on, and I have to go through all of this. And there's somebody standing behind me. And anyway, she's still holding the milk, and I explain all this, and I say, well, let me get my app going, and you've got to unlock your phone and get the app going. And so I put my phone near her mouth, it's covered by the mask, and I say, go ahead, ask your question. And so she asked the question, and what comes up on my little transcription app is, would you like your milk in a bag? All that work for one line. So that's been really, really frustrating. And it's also been tricky trying to explain to people, if you say, I'm deaf, then a lot of people think that means that they're not going to be able to communicate with me at all. And so it's very tricky to use that word. So I end up having to say, I use hearing aids to help me hear, or I'm a lip reader. And so that's how I navigate that. But on the flip side, there's been a real benefit to this period in that we are all meeting on platforms like this one, and especially Zoom. And that has been awesome for me because everybody is right there in a little box, staying still and facing the camera, facing me, and I can see them really well as long as the technology is working. And for the first time ever, I have been able to attend meetings and know what every single person is saying, when before I've never known. I've probably missed most of the meeting because there's just too much going on. So that's been really neat. And it's also, this period has sort of forced people who are afraid of technology to use it. And so, like my parents, generally stayed away from anything like this. But now I can talk to them on the phone. It feels like talking to them on the phone because I can see them. So they were sort of forced to embrace the technology. So technology can be really awful, but it can also be this great equalizer, especially for people with disabilities. It just opens up this whole world and sort of evens everybody out. And what a gift to find out that most people prefer texting to talking on the phone. And, that opened up the world to me in ways my hearing aids never did. Yeah. So anyway, it's been a weird time, but good and bad. So anyway.
When we were talking about this story the other day, it really hit home to me how we, hearing people have basically taken for granted that we can look all over the place while we're talking and not have to worry about who we're hearing or if someone isn't being able to see us. So I just thought that was a neat story to kind of illustrate both the value of these kinds of conversations, but also like maybe help some of us to be a little bit more aware to stay still when we are in person.
Right. Sure. Yeah. So,
well, I don't want to keep you too long. I want you to be able to tell us about your books. And of course, as you guys can see on the screen there, Deafo is the first one. And we have so many people commenting in the question answer about how much they love it. And they have some questions about why you, what prompted you or what inspired you to write it. And I'm sure that's part of your presentation. So I'll let you go ahead and then I'll ask you some of these questions after you've spoken.
Okay, that sounds perfect. All right. Okay, thanks. All right. So I'm doing this beautiful presentation, hopefully beautiful. And but before I start, I just wanted to thank the Junior Library Guild for hosting this and thank everybody who's tuning in, and also say congratulations to all of the ALA honorees and winners who just found out everything on Monday, the Newbery and the Caldecott. Very exciting for everybody. So before I really jump into these characters that I've developed over the years, I don't really see myself as this great writer. I really struggle with descriptive writing, and I'm definitely not the greatest illustrator in the world either. But I think I'm a pretty good storyteller. And it's actually my reliance on lip reading or my life as a lip reader that I think really helped my storytelling skills. And that's kind of a strange concept, but with lip reading, I miss about, I probably miss about 30% of what's being said. I catch about 70 or 80% of what's being said. And so the rest of that stuff is basically me filling in the blank. And so that's me sort of having to make up what the speaker is saying. And most of the time I get it right, but sometimes I get it wrong. And those misunderstandings can be really, really funny. And so even though that's my weakness, is not being able to understand, it's also sort of my strength because I love telling stories that are funny, and there's nothing funnier than misunderstanding. And a lot of how I learned how to tell stories was simply by watching television, not reading books, but watching television in the days before captioning. And so I would watch these people on screen have no idea really what they were saying, because it's very difficult to lip read television and sort of make up what they were saying and what the story was. And so that was sort of a really great practice for me on my path to becoming a storyteller. But in terms of all these different characters I'm going to be talking about, easily my most popular is Odessa. And this book was published by Abrams in 2014. And my editor for this book is Susan Van Meter. And she became a really great friend along the way, a true friend, which is what a lot of the book is about trying to find a true friend. And Susan became one of those true friends for me. And we had a very interesting way of working on the book, where I would complete a chapter and send it to her, and she would comment on it. And then I might change it a little bit and send it back and get it just right, and then move on to the next chapter. So the book feels very episodic, almost like a TV show. And just before the pandemic started, we got together and worked on a newer version of this same book, the superpowered edition. And what this is basically El Deafo with a lot of extra material in the back. Photos of family and friends and process pictures and fan mail and that kind of stuff. And it's just to give the book a little bit more context and history and all that stuff. But it's obvious who inspired this character. It's me, because this is the basically true story of my childhood. I lost my hearing when I was 4.5 from meningitis, and subsequently immediately became a deaf person. But the problem was I had been a hearing person for the first almost 5 years of my life. And so it took me a long time to finally not only accept, but embrace my deafness. So El Deafo, the superhero version of me, that was actually a nickname that I did come up with for myself. And the Deafo part was something a friend of mine had heard on television and told me about. And then I sort of adopted it as a way to own it. You know, if I call myself Deafo first, then other people aren't going to be able to say that against me. And then the El Deafo, I had a set of magic markers called El Marco back in the 1970s when I was a kid. And I thought El Marco sounded so cool that I just added the L to Deafo, and voila, that's how the name came to be. But I never really thought of myself as a true superhero with a cape and everything. They were more like my fantasies of reassessing the day. Like if I had a really difficult interaction with somebody, then later in the day, I would think to myself, oh man, what I should have done was this. What I should have said was that. And that's what El Deafo is, the stronger, the more prepared part of me, trying to show me how to get through these difficult situations. So, where's my slide? There we go. So, the kid me, who was that kid? Like all kids, I think I was kind of a complicated kid. Every kid is complicated, just like every adult is complicated. On the one hand, I was a total pushover socially. I hated conflict. I had a really hard time standing up for myself and standing up for other people. And it was important to me to show that in the book. And it comes up a lot. I'm often not able to stand up for myself. And that's a difficult thing, and I'm still that way to some degree. I'm still someone who really hates conflict. But on the other side of that kid me was this sort of fierce desire. I mean, I just had this fire inside of me to prove to people that I could do things, that I am smart and I am funny, and, watch out, I'll show you. So in that picture, the upper photo of me is me when I was in about the second grade, and you can see that determination on my face, I think. And then the other picture is me more like in fifth grade, around the time that El Deafo ends. And I am really rocking those little socks there. Anyway, so the true star of El Deafo is probably the technology, the giant hearing aid, the phonic ear that I had to wear, and the microphone that the teacher wore at school. And as much as I hated wearing that thing, I hated it because I didn't want to look different. I didn't want to feel different because I felt isolated, being different from everybody else. And so that was the hard part. But the benefit of it, of course, is that I was able to hear my teacher anywhere she was, not just in the classroom, but in the entire school building. And that gave me all these wonderful superpowers and this ability to overhear her doing things and saying things and doing things like using the bathroom, all that lovely stuff that that really became the book El Deafo. So ultimately, I think the better superpowers, I mean, at first it seems like the superpowers that El Deafo has are the just the ability to hear her teacher and have these, massive super hearing. But really, the better superpowers that she has is the ability to stand up for herself and others, and the ability to accept herself. And these are still things that I'm working on to this day. But I'm happy to say that after many, many years, I am totally at peace with my deafness. I don't think of myself as necessarily a hearing person anymore. I am a deaf person who uses hearing aids to help me hear. And I'm a lip reader. So that is that character. And definitely it was me writing what I know about the best, which is me. Right.
I love that, Cece. It's just such an awesome story, and it's so inspiring to everyone. And in fact, I was just reading some of the comments, and I want to hold my paper up here so you can watch my mouth. But Anne Atwood was commenting that when she was studying to become a librarian, that they gave her El Deafo to read, and that she loved it, but it also really opened her eyes to the power of graphic novels to tell a story. And so she wanted to share that with you.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we've received a lot of questions, which I'm sorry, everybody, that we can't get to all of them, but I wanted to just ask a couple of questions before you move on to your other characters. Let's see. A lot of people wonder, do you still talk to Mike and Martha and some of the characters or people from El Deafo?
Right. Oh, that's a great question. I am still friends with both of them. Martha especially. In fact, I just got a text from her yesterday, and she said, have your parents gotten their vaccinations yet? Because if they haven't, I'm coming to get them. So, I mean, she's just so fantastic, such a funny person.
That's cute.
As anxious as she was in the book. She's like me. We both have a lot of anxiety. That's one of our shared personality traits. But we're still friends, and still friends with, yes, Pinky Swear, and still friends with Mike. but I don't know him as well. But I mean, we're friends for life just because. But one thing I will say is that if you are really interested in El Deafo and really want to know the facts, that I did a whole web series, and every single chapter has been posted on YouTube, where I dive into each chapter. And I interviewed Martha and I interviewed Mike. And so if you want to see what the real Martha and the real Mike look like, all grown up, you can go to YouTube. Just search for like El Deafo chapter 11, whatever chapter you're interested in, and that'll come up. Yeah.
That's so fun. I love that. Yeah, I was watching some of those this morning. They're so much fun. And it's fun to see the background that went into the stories that you did tell, even a little bit deeper. But it's so amazing how deep the story was able to be as a graphic novel, with the characters' faces and the thought bubbles and the different ways that you kind of illustrated what you could and couldn't hear and the whole experience. So I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So Myra wonders, can you still sing the Yellow Submarine?
Oh, can I sing? Oh, yeah. We live in the Yellow Submarine. And, you know, the reason that song is in there is it is absolutely the very last song that I sang along to and that I heard with my actual hearing before I lost my hearing. And so, I mean, I have this very strong memory of standing up on a chair in preschool, and it was playing on a record player, and I just sang along, and I love the Beatles. I loved them then, I love them now. And I think about that song a lot. Is just, you know, that's the last song that I ever heard for real. And so it's just interesting to think about.
That's great that it stayed with you. I love that. Music does that.
Yeah.
So I've seen this question from several people, but Dory Citrus actually just asked again. There's fourth graders at Miliani Waina Elementary in Hawaii. Pardon me if I mispronounced that. They want to know, why did you use rabbits as the characters and not people? And rabbits are in other books too. So I'm curious about that as well.
Well, for this book, the rabbits were a very intentional choice. And I was basically thinking about this book as a book about hearing and not being able to hear. And so I started to think, well, what kind of animals have big ears? And because we use our ears to hear. So I sort of landed on the rabbit because they have these giant ears and they also hear really well. So I was trying to make the point that that I was a rabbit like everybody else. I had the ears like everybody else, but my ears didn't work. And then the other reason for it was, in real life, when I wore the phonic ear hearing aid, the cords, the earpieces went up to my ears like this, and then I had cords that went up to the sides of my head. But in the book, having the bunny rabbit ears, I was able to draw the cords going all the way up over my head, much more visible, much more obvious, which is how I felt. I felt like everybody was looking at me all the time when they really weren't. Right. But that was the reason. And it sort of, one of the great benefits of it was that it's sort of, anybody can be a rabbit. You know, it doesn't matter. I'm a white person, but I think it resonates with everybody because it's a rabbit. It's not, you know, this ethnicity or that one. Right. So that was sort of a benefit. But I wasn't thinking about that then, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. Well, speaking of like back then, one of the things that I love that you've said is that you really, and obviously we'll be seeing some of this in the next slides, but you really wanted to establish yourself as an author illustrator on your own merit, really before anyone kind of knew about your deafness. And so I thought that was neat that you didn't want to just be known as the deaf author illustrator. You wanted to have established yourself, which you fully did with your other characters, and I can't wait to talk about them. And then with this, it was kind of like you said, it was something you were just coming to terms with. I think you told me yesterday it was maybe 10 years ago, right? That you finally said, I've got to tell this story. And so that's neat that you had that opportunity. I will tell you, everybody loves the red swimsuit from Deafo. Lots of excitement about the swimsuit. And like, there's been a bunch here. Did you really love your red swimsuit that much? Did you really like to put on your bathing suit? Someone says they love seeing, that you in the red swimsuit. I remember reading that you couldn't remember exactly what it looked like, so you went with your best memory.
I love that red swimsuit, and I don't think it looked exactly like what I've got in the book. It had a more elaborate pattern to it, but I was trying to keep everything simple. So it's got those little white polka dots. But I have this very distinct memory of being about 3 and getting this bathing suit and putting it on and looking in the mirror and thinking, oh my gosh, I am so good looking. I am never going to be this good looking again. And I loved it so much that I wore it every single day. And the legend is, my parents were really, loosey-goosey about this kind of thing. They let me wear it every single day. And I wore it every day for 9 months straight. And I think I probably was wearing underwear under it, but I would change my underwear, but then put the suit right back on. And I looked great, and I felt very confident in it. So, I wore it for a long time.
That's cute. And you grew up in Virginia, so that couldn't have been comfortable in every weather for 9 months.
Yeah, it got pretty cold, and I still wore it even when it was cold, and my mom would argue with me about, well, cover it up with a T-shirt at least, but I don't want to. And I would roll up my T-shirt so that I could reveal the bathing suit underneath. So.
Oh my gosh. I love it. That's so great. Well, let me let you go on with your other characters, because I know everybody loves the other books too. So I'll turn my camera off and let you take it.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, the another book that the Junior Library Guild selected was Rabbit and Robot, and yes, indeed, it's another rabbit. But this book actually came out before Deafo, and so I like rabbits. What can I say? But these two characters, Rabbit is sort of this very high-strung, anxious list maker. I've got to make this list, and I'm going to stick to that list no matter what. And then Robot is sort of this more laid-back character who, and Rabbit and Robot are really good friends. And Robot is more laid back, and he doesn't really have that anxiety and kind of goes with the flow a little more. And people think of robots as being rigid and, the list makers. So it was kind of fun to turn that on its head a little bit. But when I first started working on this particular book, I thought of Rabbit. I was basing Rabbit on family members, or so I thought. But what really ended up happening is Rabbit is me, the more anxious side of me, the person who I love to make lists, and I make my little list every day, and then I get really, really upset when the list doesn't happen, or I don't do everything on the list exactly the way I have it written. Drives me nuts. But Robot, on the other hand, is who I would like to be. I would like to be more like Robot, who is able to see that even though I didn't get everything, or me and Rabbit, even though we don't get everything done on the list, we still accomplished other things, like we made dinner, or we vacuumed the hallway. So robot is the side of me that, or is something I would like to be more like. But these two are pretty funny together. And there's also a follow-up book, Rabbit and Robot and Ribbit. And those are a lot of R's. And I had years and years of speech therapy to help me with the letter R. So it's the worst title for me. Rabbit, Robot, Ribbit, But anyway, so that's, once again, they're very much based on kind of other people, but really based on me more than anything. And then another early reader book that came out fairly recently is Smell My Foot. And this is an early reader published by Candlewick, and the Rabbit and Robot in this book and the one I'll talk about right after it are all edited by my friend Sarah Kesherson. And if you are a writer, it's really good to be friends with your editors. And editors are so nice, and they know what they're doing, and she's a terrific friend too. But anyway, this one is done in comics format, and it's sort of like baby's first graphic novel. It's all in comics form, and comics is one of my very, very favorite ways to tell a story because it's all about communication. There's no need to say he said or she said, and there's also no need for any descriptive writing, which is not really one of my great strengths. You get to have the pictures do a lot of the work. And I think that so many of the comics that I do are all about misunderstanding, miscommunication, because it's really, really funny. And that's definitely true of Smell My Foot, because Chick is sort of fixated on manners and is very rigid about that. And then Brain is sort of this more laid back, kind of smug character, and he seems stupid. I mean, he's got a big brain and he seems stupid, but maybe he's not. He's a kind of a weird character. But they are actually, or this book was developed because I, for the first time ever, really wanted to create a book that helped kids learn how to read. And I started to think about the books that taught me how to read way, way back in the 1970s. And those books were the Dick and Jane books. And the Dick and Jane books are really quite boring, but they work because they're very, very repetitive. And the language in Smell My Foot is also very repetitive. So I started to think about early Dick and Jane books and how they never said he said or she said. So I thought, boy, these could really work as comics. And you can see in this slide that the way the page is originally presented is with the words at the very bottom. But it could be just as easy to put those words in a speech balloon and have a comic. But wouldn't it be a lot funnier if Jane came up to Dick and said, "Hello, Dick, smell my foot." But I knew that I couldn't use the Dick and Jane characters because they didn't belong to me. And I love rhymes. So I started to think, wait a minute, I've got it. I will turn Dick into Chick, and I will turn Jane into Brain. And then my own brain got very, very tired trying to think up rhymes. So I just made Spot the dog be Spot, my dog. So that's how all these characters got developed. And there was a follow-up to that book as well. And that one is called Egg or Eyeball. And it is probably in my mind, the apex of my career, because it is the weirdest, goofiest book I've ever made. And to me, the funniest. It might not be the funniest to somebody else, but I think it's really quite silly. And my number one goal as a children's book writer is making people laugh. It's not teaching them how to read. It's not anything else but making them laugh. Although teaching them how to read is really, really great. And I hope that does happen with these books. But really, I just want to make people laugh. So that is all of my presentation. That most of it was on Deafo, but those are some of the other characters, and you can kind of see how they're all based on myself. And I think every writer who comes up with characters is taking from their own life, even maybe not even realizing it while they're doing it, but that is what happens. So, so there you have it. I was pretty snippy and snappy there, wasn't I?
Yeah, that was quick and fun. Jill O'Connor just says she doesn't have a question, but they love Smell My Foot, and Egg or Eyeball is fun, and they're hoping that more come from the chicken brain duo.
Yay!
Yeah, actually, so I wanted to mention that the Rabbit and Robot, the first one was a Geisel Award-winning book, right?
That's correct, yes. And Smell My Foot. I was pretty pleased by that, yeah.
Yeah, that's so neat. And then, you know, with El Deafo being the first graphic novel to get a Newbery honor, I bet it was pretty exciting to see New Kid win last year.
It was very exciting because really, I think the Newbery rules are more like, you know, it can't be illustrated. It can't be illustrated. So I was really surprised by it. And I'm still, I don't think I've ever truly believed it. You know, that feeling where you get where this didn't happen, did it? And
Right.
I still have that disbelief about it. And but it was a really, really great committee, and they worked really hard to think about the book outside of the pictures. Apparently, they read it to each other without the picture, so the person couldn't see the pictures to see if they liked the writing on its own, and they did. So that was pretty neat. It was very, very special time for me.
Yeah. So you were telling me the other day about, I think I asked what made you decide to be an author illustrator, and you told me about your time in school and meeting your husband. Would you share that story with everybody?
Oh, sure. So I didn't quite know what I was doing when I went away to college. I was a very, very academic person, and I knew that my goal in life was to make straight A's. I had no career in mind, nothing. It's just, you're going to make straight A's. Okay. But, you know, eventually you have to figure out what you're going to do. And I was a very unhappy English major at the College of William and Mary. And I met the person who would become my husband, Tom, and he was an art major, and he was having a big old time over there in the art department. And I was miserable. And he one day just said, I think you should be an art major. You'll have a lot more fun. And sure enough, I ditched the English major. And I think I was just so tired of reading books. And I know that's a terrible thing to say to the school library guild. Oh yeah, just but you know, I am not a strong reader. I've never been a strong reader. I mean, I like to read, but I'm slow at reading, and if the book doesn't interest me by page 2, I'm out. You know, I'm just really picky. So being an English major, no, like no more books. But with the art major, I got to make things, and I love making things. And And Tom just really encouraged my art, and is probably a big part of why I'm in children's books today, because he's always been just my biggest cheerleader in a lot of ways.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. Well, speaking of being an author and an illustrator, you originally started out illustrating, and now you're author illustrator. Do you have a preference for one of the or the other form of art, or equal?
It really depends on the project. I actually think the illustrating is harder for me because,
Really?
because I'm just, what's in my brain never matches up with what ends up on paper, and it's very frustrating. And just like I am with reading, I'm very slow at drawing. I'm just I always say I feel ham-fisted, like, I mean, I'm good. It's good, but it's not like, the Mona Lisa or whatever. The illustration is really, really hard for me. And the writing can be too, but I feel like, in a lot of ways, comics is the perfect medium for me, because it's more organic, and you can sort of fudge things and play with conversations and play with all of that in a really different way from picture books and early readers and middle grade novels. And, no descriptive writing, yay.
Right. It's so easy to digest and so fun. Well, I know we had some folks, you were mentioning that you weren't a big, you didn't really enjoy reading, or especially if it didn't catch your mind. And I'm sorry to whoever said this, but I saw it come through. Mentioned that in making kids laugh, you're also making them enjoy books at that age that you're writing for. So that's kind of a neat turnaround.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely true for me. If the book is funny, I'm going to read it. And some of the greatest books are the ones that are really, really funny. Like, one of my favorite books, Christopher Paul Curtis, The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963. Oh. It's so funny. I mean, it's just so funny. And then wham, he hits you. And it hits you hard, but you're already so invested in these characters because they feel so familiar, and they've made you laugh, and you just keep turning the pages because you want to get that next funny bit, and then all of a sudden it changes. Those are the best, most powerful books, are the ones that use humor to get you in.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. We talked a lot about humor with the editors at JLG, and just about how there are so many really powerful humor books, and how they're really so appealing across all the ages, because they tell a story that it like just exactly what you just described. And humor is awesome for that. I love that that's your angle. Someone also asked, how would you differentiate your style and your husband's style in terms of writing?
Oh, my goodness. We seem to be becoming one. I mean, our styles are kind of similar in a lot of ways. They're both very goofy and heavy on the cartoon end of things. Mm-hmm. I think, though, that Tom is a more what's the word? He's more slapdash, but it totally works. Like I'll just redo a drawing over and over and over, even if it's really simple, just to get that eye just perfect. Where he's just like, oh, that eye is good enough, and he moves on, and he's just a lot more he's freer and looser than I am. But our styles seem kind of similar in a way. But I think he's a really terrific illustrator, and he thinks I'm the better one, but I think he's the better one.
Well, Erica asks, besides yourself and your husband, do you have a favorite graphic author or illustrator?
Oh gosh, boy, I have so many. But in terms of in the comics world, I'm a huge fan of Raina Telgemeier work
Oh,
and
yeah.
Victoria Jameson. They're both just absolutely fantastic. And the guy that colored Deafo is a college friend of mine. Yeah, the colorist, and he does wonderful work. But it's I guess it's more adult stuff, but really terrific. So I have so many favorites. Everybody is good.
I know it's hard to name favorites. Well, I do want to talk about your favorites, but we have Kenali, who has a couple of questions, and she has been active in the question answer, and I haven't had a chance to ask any of hers yet. She is wondering, how did you actually get your books published? And some people have asked similar things, like how did you get to that step?
Okay. Well, that was a long, long, long time ago in 2000, 20 years ago. The way I got into it, and this was sort of before you could use the internet that much to figure things out. And, but it had just started, there a brand new internet list on the internet, of publishers. And I had written my first book, which was, Stock Monkey Goes to Hollywood. And I thought, well, maybe this is good enough finally. What do I do? And I went online and I saw that Candlewick Press was accepting submissions, and that you did not have to have an agent. And I didn't have an agent when I started out. And so I put together this really, really good proposal and a book dummy, like a little, what the book might be like, the whole thing all drawn out. It worked like a book. You turn the pages and all that. And I just sent it. And 3 months later, I got a phone call on the answering machine. And so, of course, I didn't understand the message because there was no mouth to read. And, but I heard this sort of, Candlewick, was that Candlewick? And so I remember having to wait a long time before Tom came home to listen to the message. But that was sort of how I got my foot in the door. I was one of the lucky people who my very first submission, I got it. So that's very unusual. But I don't think I was the right person at the right time, my editors. Right. And, there's a lot of luck that goes into it. There's a lot of hard work, but there's also a lot of luck. And that story could have easily gone a different way. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of Tom and helping you hear that, I know that I got to meet him the other day because he helped with getting us all set up. And Dory, who is, I think, in Hawaii, she said that both of your books and Tom's have won Hawaii State NENA awards. And they're just wondering, their fourth grade class is wondering if Tom is around. And if Tom is around, could he pop in and say hi?
Oh, maybe. Let me go see. Hold on.
Well, while she's gone, I will just, I'll just say what I'm seeing here. It looks like Divinity is wondering about writing books about herself and her sister Melody. And my suggestion is, Divinity, give it a shot. I think you could probably do it yourself because like Cece, she told her story the best. So I bet you could tell your story with your sister.
Okay.
I think you might be seeing Tom. Oh,
hey, everybody.
Special guest. Can you walk in a little bit further because we can't see you?
I'm not looking very good today. It's for the band.
We caught you out off guard. Well, tell him.
Here's a close-up.
We'll make that work.
All right, there you go.
That's fun. Well, tell him we thank him for being a good sport.
Absolutely.
Well, another question that has come up several times, I wanted to have an opportunity to ask you before we have to shut things down. People are wondering if you can say what your favorite book is among your books.
Oh, okay. My favorite books. I have some ones from when I was little. My absolute favorite book of all time, ever, is this book, the Our Animal Friends at Maple Hill Farm by Alice and Martin Provenson. And I got this book. It's really cool. This has got all these fabulous animals in there. Oh my gosh. I got this book, and this is my actual copy, when in 1975, a few months after I got back from the hospital, and I had just gotten my hearing aids, and my favorite uncle bought that book for me and sat there and read the entire thing to me. And it's it's got a lot of words in it. And it's such a great book. And they're probably my favorite illustrators from yesteryear, writers and illustrators. And then my other favorites were the Ed Emberley drawing books. I loved these books. And these were the books that I checked out of the library all the time. And finally, Tom and I were talking about, you know, how there are books that aren't necessarily, they weren't created necessarily for kids, but for some reason you just get completely enamored with them. And that book was the Gnomes book. Do you remember that? It came out in the early 70s, and it's like anthropology and all these fantastic paintings of gnomes and this whole history of them. And I was obsessed with this book. I love it. Yeah. But in terms of books right now, I love so much. But I recently got Lewin Sam's book, Outside, Inside, which is all about the response to the pandemic. And it is just an absolute masterpiece. I can't even talk about it without choking up, but she just figured out a way to talk about what's happening in the most profound and moving way, and the illustrations are terrific. But I think I've lost you. I've lost Rhonda. All I can see is my big old head. Oh no. I guess I can sing some songs. Where are you tonight? Why did you leave me here all alone? I searched the world over and thought I found true love. You met another and you were gone.
Did I lose you guys?
There you are.
I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? I'm so sorry.
I sang the hee-haw song. I'm not sure what was happening, so I sang the hee-haw.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Did you sing the where are you? I missed it. I would have sang along. Shoot. Well, I'm so glad I was able to connect back. That would have been a real bummer. Gosh. Well, if I missed it, sorry, but people are wondering, do you have a favorite book from among your own books that you've written?
My own book. Oh my goodness. I do. My favorite book, and I wish I had a copy of it in front of me. It's a picture book that came out in 2009, I think, called Bewigged. And the B is spelled BEE-WIGGED, Bewigged. And it's all about Jerry B. And he's this giant, bee that's the size of a 5-year-old. And all he wants to do is make friends with people. But it's very difficult because he's a giant bee. And he finds a wig on the sidewalk, and he thinks, well, why not? And he puts the wig on his head, and instantly everybody thinks he's a kid. And I won't give the rest away because there's a magnificent twist.
Magnificent.
Pretty goofy, but it's probably my favorite because I think, without really meaning to, I meant for it to be really funny, but it kind of has a nice little, it's kind of about accepting people and that kind of thing. So
not judging a book by its cover. That's fun. Well, kind of the same type of question, but Morgan wonders if you have a specific book of yours that you enjoy hearing people use at story time.
That I enjoy hearing at story time. Yeah. Anytime a librarian reads I Am a Donkey, that's my favorite because, I get really self-conscious when I read my own stuff out loud. And, when you do those presentations where they want you to read the book and you're holding it and, I hate it. I'm just so bad at it. But librarians are so good at reading books out loud. And I Am a Donkey is probably the one that I most enjoy. Yeah.
Well, I confess that I did ask if Cece wanted to read a book for us today. So I already got the no way.
I don't know. It's like while you're reading it, you start to get really hypercritical. You think, I should have used this word, not that word. And I don't know. It just makes me feel a little self. But I'll do it. It's not the end of the world or anything, but yeah. It's like when, especially, my painting fell. Everything's falling. I don't know, but because I can't see the faces of the listeners, that's kind of weird too.
I bet.
A difficult time for teachers for that reason. Yeah. I can't see my students.
Yeah. Well, I know we've come to the top of the hour. I know myself and I'm sure everybody watching would love to continue chatting, but we probably ought to close it up. But I did want to ask one question, and let me find out who it was that asked it. Hang on just a second. Oh, it was Emily at Sheridan, Wyoming, Highland Park Elementary. And she was wondering if you do any virtual visits at schools. And if so, how would folks find out about how they could talk to you about a virtual visit?
Oh, okay. Well, right now I've been taking a little break from virtual school visits, but, or school visits in general. We're not allowed to go, but I have a website, which is cecebell.com, and there's a little sidebar, I guess, that says when I'm available or, when I'll be starting back up. So you can check back there, and the information, the contact stuff would be there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. Well, and Barbara was wondering if you could repeat the name of the book that you were talking about the pandemic.
It's called Outside Inside, and which is confusing because there was a book that just got a Caldecott honor called Outside In, I think, something like that.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, and it's by Lewin Pham. And her last name is spelled Pham. Pham.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic book. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, and I guess we can end on this question, but do you have any upcoming books that you can tell us about?
Oh, no. I have nothing. I have nothing for you. I will have to say that for some people, the 2020 was a year of great creativity and that sort of thing. And for me, it was the opposite. I sort of shut down. My brain was so full of the pandemic and politics and news. And I mean, there was no space in my brain for anything. But that has lifted, I am happy to say. Yeah. And I am working on a book proposal right now.
Oh,
but Yeah, but it feels like it's a little too early to say what it is. But I got nothing.
Well, we'll just wait until you do and be happy when we hear about it. So, well, thank you. I just really quick, I'll just forward through a couple of these slides in case we do have librarians on here who are interested. We actually right now have Black History Month books on sale for $8. If you go to our website, you can click on a little picture up at the very top and see those options. And then also, if you're looking for fundraising opportunities for your library, we have at-home online book fairs right now that we're scheduling for the spring. And they're 100% online, and everything's delivered directly to the students' homes. So wanted to make sure you knew about that. Got to get a plug in. Thank you. Thank you so much, Cece. It was wonderful to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for hosting and for bearing with any of our technological problems. There were very few. I thought we made it. We made it.
We just didn't get to have we didn't get to do a duet. Next time.
Well, let me just thank everybody who tuned in today for taking the time to do that. That really means a whole lot to me that you would disrupt your beautiful days to check in with us, and thank you for your questions and for reading the books and for helping me watch the donut and not the hole. Thank you for that.
I love that. Well, thank you again. Have a wonderful day, and we'll be excited to hear about the next Cece Bell excitement.
All right, awesome. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.